Hi, I'm Julia, and I've always dreamed of becoming a model. I want to tell you the story of how I accidentally drove my mom to hysteria because of that dream. It all started when a new girl came to our class. During the very first lesson, Anna immediately became the center of attention. It was a gym class, and she tried to do a cartwheel but couldn't make her feet leave the floor. The girl was all sweaty and red but didn't give up. Our classmates were having a blast. She's a little pig, but she did it. Then, all of a sudden, with a loud ripping sound, Anna's pants burst at the seams. Everyone roared with laughter, but I felt sorry for her. I sat down, tore up my joggers, and said, "Actually, ripped clothes are trendy now. You don't know a damn thing about fashion." I was quite popular at school, so people listened to me. Our classmates stopped laughing, and Anna thanked me for saving her. We got to talking. She turned out to be a cool girl, but seemed quite unhappy for some reason. She had no friends at all. Her classmates had always laughed at her for her figure, and she had had to change 3 schools because of that already. I'm afraid the same thing will happen here. What if you threw a cool party? You'd make friends with everyone faster that way. Anna liked my idea and invited her classmates to her place that evening. At first, everything was going great. We were chilling by the pool and chatting about all sorts of nonsense, but then I suddenly saw Anna. She was sitting on a sunbed away from anyone, wrapped in a towel and doing something on her phone. Well, I decided that just wouldn't do. I came up to my new friend and dragged her to the bar by the hand. But then Whitney approached us, the meanest girl at school. She stepped on Anna's long towel and it fell to the ground. The new girl was left in a swimsuit. That's what she had been afraid of. Everyone was laughing again. I had to avenge my new friend. I grabbed Whitney by the hair and tried to throw her into the pool, but I accidentally hit Anna and she, waving her arms, plopped into the water. Oops. It turned out she couldn't swim. I threw her a swimming ring. I wish I'd come up with a better idea. Anna got stuck in it and floundered even more. All around, everyone was dying laughing. Somehow she reached the side of the pool and I helped her out of the water. Anna was very angry and said that the party was over. Who would have thought that the next morning everything would be even worse? It turned out that Whitney had taken a picture of me dragging Anna out of the pool with a tense face and sent those pictures to all the school group chats. In just one day, we became a walking meme. Anna completely withdrew into herself, but I still managed to get her to talk. My neighbor was at the party yesterday. I've liked him for a long time, but after such a disgrace, he will never look twice at me. Anyway, this party was a mistake. Now everyone is making fun of me even more. I was getting tired of her whining. I decided to rid my friend of her old insecurities. In fact, I knew just how to do it. Whenever I felt self-conscious about something, I put on my best clothes, rented a photo studio on the roof of a skyscraper, and took pictures of myself. After that, I would look at the pictures and realize I'd been stressing out in vain. The most important thing to do was to love yourself. If you did that, others would reach out to you themselves. That's what I decided to teach my chubby classmate. We went up to my favorite studio and I showed Anna one tricky pose. You need to put your foot back, half turn to the camera and tilt your head back a little. That will make you look much thinner in the photo. And of course, the look is important too. It has to be confident and proud. Anna turned out to be a good student. We made a bunch of cool photos. She couldn't stop looking at them and kept thanking me. To be honest, I was flattered. It turned out I was a talented model because I knew how to turn even someone so plain into a beauty. We started coming to the roof almost every day. After our lessons, Anna became more and more bold and beautiful. I liked the way she followed my every instruction. But the thing was, our hobby wasn't cheap. I didn't have enough pocket money to rent the studio and kept asking my mom for more and more. In the end, she began to suspect something. "Why do you need so much money?" "I'm taking extra physics classes." I was ashamed to admit to my mom that I was spending her money on such stuff, but one day, my lie was almost discovered. That day, the results of the physics test came in. One, I had failed. When I got home, Mom was very angry. "Just what are we paying money for? Give me your tutor's number." My phone has died. I'll recharge it and give it to you." Mom went to the shower and looked through my contacts. Well, who was going to play the role of my tutor? Without thinking twice, I chose Kevin. Mom definitely didn't know him because we'd met a couple of days ago in the photo studio. He worked there as a photographer. I quickly dialed Kevin and convinced him to play along. Everything went great. Kevin promised my mom he would deal with my bad mark. She calmed down a little and gave me money again. So the next morning, I went to school in a great mood. But then I suddenly saw Kevin. "Julie, a favor for a favor. I'm putting together a portfolio to get a job in a glossy magazine. And I'm looking for a beautiful model for a shoot in a swimsuit. Will you help me?" "Me? But in a swimsuit? It's a bit too much." "Don't worry, those photos won't go anywhere. I'll just show them at the job interview and that's it." I hesitated for a long time, but in the end, Kevin managed to convince me. We agreed to meet at the photo studio after classes. I came to school and Anna suddenly bumped into me in the corridor. She was crying. Why did you lie to me? I believed in myself, posted those photos on Instagram and waited for likes, but there's only hate in the comments. All of our classmates are laughing at. They say it's all Photoshop. I was about to calm my friend down, but Whitney appeared next to me again. Who were you trying to deceive? Like we haven't seen you in real life? Whitney, that's enough. The photos weren't edited. It's just beautiful makeup and a good pose and angle. I stood up for Anna as best I could, but I lost the war. Soon the other students joined Whitney, and my excuses simply weren't enough for the whole crowd. Anna ran away from school. I spent the whole day trying to reach her, but she didn't even read my messages. I wanted to go to her after classes, but then I remembered my promise to Kevin. I was in no mood to pose and smile, but I still went home to get a swimsuit and came to the studio. At first, I felt terribly embarrassed. Kevin asked me to look at the camera and stand in modest poses while he ran around and took pictures. After a couple of hours, I wasn't feeling shy at all, and even suggested an idea for a photo. These should be enough. Thank you, Julie. You're awesome. As soon as I edit them, I'll send you all the photos. I was so happy that I completely forgot about my friend's problems. But when I came home, I realized I was the one in trouble. As soon as I opened the door, Mom shoved her phone under my nose. What is this? My breath caught. There was a photo of me in a swimsuit on the screen. A photo from the shoot I had just returned from. But how? I mumbled something, and Mom suddenly covered her face with her hands and began to cry. One of your classmates sent it to a group chat. One of the moms saw it and forwarded it to me. Baby, tell me the truth. Did someone get these photos and start blackmailing you? That's why you asked me for money, right? To calm her down, I had to tell my mom the whole truth about Anna, fake tutoring and the photo shoot. I was sure Mom would be happy. After all, nothing terrible had happened, but she suddenly got even angrier. I thought those photos were stolen from you, and you were beside yourself with worry, but you actually agreed to such madness of your own free will? God, how humiliating! My mom had never punished me as seriously as she did that day. She took away all my pocket money and changed our Wi-Fi password. She also hired a real physics tutor. Long story short, my life turned into hell. And I knew who was to blame. Whitney, of course. She had already bullied Anna for her photos, and now she decided to pick on me? Kevin must have turned out to be an acquaintance of hers. She had probably put him up to arranging that stupid photo shoot, and as soon as she got the scandalous photos, sent them to group chats. I couldn't leave it like that. The next morning, I found Whitney and pinned her to the wall. What the hell did you do that for? Fighting at school is one thing, but bringing our parents into this is going too far. Hey, back off. I don't know what you're talking about. Of course, I didn't believe her, but to take revenge then would have been madness. Mom would have punished me even harsher. I felt like everyone was discussing me the whole day. I wanted to talk to Anna about my problems, but for some reason she wasn't at school. Still, she wasn't even answering my messages or calls. I felt worried about my friend and went to her house after classes. Luckily, she was fine. As soon as Anna opened the door, I hugged her, but she suddenly pushed me away. I was shocked and demanded an explanation. You're a dumb, narcissistic doll. You don't really care about me. All this time you've just been mocking me. Well, fine. Now you'll feel what it's like to be me. I'm the one who sent your photos to everyone. Didn't expect that, did you? Now get lost. I hate you. Tears ran down my face. Was that how Anna had decided to thank me for everything I had done for her? She turned me into a laughingstock. I turned around and hurried away from my ungrateful friend and suddenly ran into someone near her house. It was Kevin. What was he doing there? I slapped him. This is for lying to me and leaking my photos. The guy clearly hadn't been expecting such a turn. What are you on about? That's crazy. I haven't even downloaded your photos from the camera yet. Yeah, sure. Then what are you doing outside Anna's house? Here for your fee? Actually, I live here. He pointed to the house next door. Anna and I aren't exactly close. She invited me to her party once, but I never dared to approach her. I've liked her for a long time. That's when I understood everything. Kevin was the neighbor Anna was crazy about. It was so cute that I even smiled. But then I remembered how Anna had hurt me. I apologized to Kevin and went to the photo studio to finally sort everything out. I lied and said that I had lost my purse and asked to see the footage from the surveillance camera. I rewound it to the time of my photo shoot the day before. Kevin and I had been so caught up in the process that we hadn't even noticed Anna. She had hidden around the corner and filmed everything on her phone. Now it was clear to me why Anna was so furious with me. She was just jealous. It was so stupid. Kevin wasn't my type at all, and I would have never stolen my friend's boyfriend, but I still felt a little guilty. After all, I really had been flirting with him a little bit. The next day, I decided to bring them together and wrote 2 notes. One of them was Kevin inviting Anna to a date on the roof, and the other was Anna doing the same to him. A couple of hours before the date, I went up there myself, spread a blanket, prepared snacks and candles. After everything was ready, I decided to correct my other mistake and apologize to my mother. Oddly enough, she quickly forgave me, but she made me promise never to pose like that again. There was only one problem left. How was I supposed to survive at school after such a scandal? The next morning, I hesitantly walked into the classroom and, to my surprise, heard admiring whistles. It turned out that my classmates liked my bold photos. Even Whitney. She said they looked like pictures from a real magazine. Long story short, I had been worried in vain. I had been teaching Anna to love herself, but forgot to follow my own advice. The same day after school, Anna came up to me. Kevin and I figured out that it was you who set up the date for us. Thank you, Julie. Just imagine, we're a couple now. And also, forgive me if you can. I blamed you for all of my problems. At first, I got stuck in the swimming ring because of you. Then you convinced me that I was beautiful and I posted photos on Instagram and embarrassed myself. But the most important thing that happened that day, I forgot my phone in the studio. I came to get it and I saw you and Kevin. And you look like that. I immediately imagined all sorts of things. I didn't promise Anna anything. After what she did, I realized you don't need to help everyone. Sometimes you can go too far even when you only wish the best for someone. Do you think I should forgive Anna?
Hi, I'm Joanna, and I've already changed 3 schools. The thing is, I was an excellent student, and the teachers constantly set me as the example. But in the end, my friends couldn't stand it any longer and started spreading dirty rumors about me. I decided I didn't want to study with jerks. So I asked my mom to transfer me to a new school, and that happened several times. When I first came to the new class in my current school, I was expecting everyone to throw snotty little side glances at me again, of course. But my new classmates turned out to be pretty friendly. A girl came up to me right away. Hi, I'm Susie. Come on, I'll show you around. Well, Susie turned out to be a terrible gossip. An hour after we'd met, I already knew almost everything there was to know about my new classmates. But it was still nice to make friends with someone. The first class was my favorite, math. The teacher came in, sternly looked at the students, and stopped at me. Stand up, miss. I got up and I started the floor in embarrassment. You should have seen what started then. Mrs. Smith began to scold me in front of everyone for my bright hair, piercing, and short skirt. I wanted to sink through the floor. My face was burning for the rest of the class, and I even missed the explanation of a new topic. After the bell rang, I asked Susie, why did she rip into me like that? Oh, don't mind Miss Smith. She can be pretty weird sometimes. Tomorrow, she'll forget all about it. Don't worry. Just wear whatever you want. That calmed me down a little bit. The next morning, I came to school looking just the same, and Susie had been right. Mrs. Smith didn't say a word about my looks, but she did ask me to come to the blackboard. I looked at the task and was delighted because I'd solved hundreds of similar ones in my previous school. But then, the teacher said, solve it, but only use the method that I showed you during the last lesson. Oops. I had been so out of sorts because of Miss Smith's scolding that I hadn't been paying attention to her at all. But luckily, Susie saved me. She started to write the solution in a large notebook and show it to me from her desk at the back of the classroom. I copied everything onto the board, and I gratefully winked at my new friend. When Mrs. Smith suddenly shouted, where did you even get these numbers from? What have they even been teaching you in your other schools? Damn it. I'd probably misunderstood what Susie had written and made a mistake somewhere. The teacher snatched the marker from my hand and started to write on the board with an important look in her eye. Here's the solution I expected from you. I couldn't help myself. But that's so much more complicated. I wiped her notes off the board and wrote my own answer in. I'd learned the methods in my previous schools. My solution was much shorter than Mrs. Smith's, but the answer was still the same. I turned to the class and I explained how I had done that. Even the hooligans broke away from their mobile phones, and they stared at the board. After I finished, one of them said, whoa, turns out everything's pretty simple. Hey, new girl, you're pretty cool. Yeah, Mrs. Smith did not like that at all. She frowned, pressing her lips together nervously, and she sat at her desk. All right, Joanna, since you're so smart, I bet you won't have any problems teaching the next class in my place. But I was glad, because math had always come easy to me. But then Miss Smith told me the topic. You'll be telling us about integrals. I immediately turned pale. I had never covered that topic yet, and the only thing I knew about them was that they were very difficult. But still, I couldn't give up just like that. I had to show that mean teacher up. So that's why I spent the whole day and all night reading my textbooks. And by morning, I thought I'd come up with the perfect lesson plan. But to be honest, I was terribly worried. However, as soon as I walked into the classroom, Susie hugged me.
Hey, cheer up. I know you can do it.
And that gave me confidence. I started explaining integrals, and I got so carried away in the process that I even sat right on the teacher's desk. At that moment, I didn't care what Miss Smith had to say about it, because everything was going perfectly. At the end, my classmates clapped, and only the teacher looked annoyed, because, of course, after all, I had won. I came back home feeling very pleased with myself, and I was going to tell my mom all about my success when, all of a sudden, she called to me sternly. "I saw your gradebook online. What were you thinking?" I looked at my mom's laptop and I choked on a piece of gum in surprise. In my diary was a D for behavior. Mrs. Smith had written the explanation as sat on the teacher's desk. God, could she be any more insufferable? She just couldn't bear that a schoolgirl could explain complex topics better than her. I told my mom what had really happened and she praised me for my courage. But she still advised me not to argue with Mrs. Smith. She's a teacher. No matter what, everything will be as she says it is. Well, we would see about that. I decided I would take revenge on my teacher for such an injustice. But morning came and I still hadn't come up with anything. At school, Susie distracted me from thinking about Miss Smith.
Hey, look! A school beauty contest got announced. You should participate!
I felt so happy that I even forgot about my devious plans. From that day on, I began to prepare diligently for the contest. I practiced how I would walk. I chose a song. I bought an incredible dress. And Susie helped me with everything and psyched me up for the victory. And long story short, on the day of the contest, I was 100% ready. As soon as my number was announced, I went on stage and, as Susie had advised me to, I threw a confident glance at the jury. But imagine my surprise when in one of the judges' chairs, I saw Mrs. Smith. She was slyly smiling and writing something down in a notebook. I broke into a sweat. Now I definitely wouldn't win, no matter how hard I tried. I tensed up and my body locked. My legs suddenly stopped obeying me, and I walked like a duck, stumbled, and almost sprawled out in the middle of the stage. But that wasn't the worst part. During the creative performance, I couldn't even hit the high notes, and I wheezed in some awful voice. The audience burst out laughing, and a malicious smile spread across Miss Smith's face. As you might have guessed, I lost the contest. Out of pity, the jury members gave me average scores. But Mrs. Smith decided to finish me off and held up a sign with the lowest possible score. 1. Tears welled up in my eyes. I was about to run away from that humiliation when the teacher suddenly picked up the microphone. "Joanna, I expected more from you. Next time, how about you do us a favor? Work on your walk and your voice, and take pity on our eyes and ears." It all became too much for me. She had absolutely no right to humiliate me like that. I grabbed the microphone and I told Miss Smith everything I thought of her. The jury and the audience sat with their mouths wide open, and Susie kept pressing her finger to her lips with a pleading look, but there was no stopping me. After my fiery speech, I finally exhaled. I felt so much better. With a proud look, I finally got down from the stage, and I only burst into tears once I'd gotten out onto the street. After a scandal like this, I would absolutely have to look for a new school again. And after I had finally found some good friends, I was heading home when I suddenly heard Susie's voice.
Wait, Joanna, I need to tell you something.
What is there to talk about?
I've been hiding something from you. When Mrs. Smith came to our school, all of the girls here were like you. We wore tight clothes and makeup and we did our hair. But then we started to notice something odd. The cooler we looked, the worse our grades were. It was suspicious, so we Googled our teacher. It turned out that in her youth, she was a real beauty and even took part in beauty contests. She'd almost won, but the jury suddenly chose another girl as the winner, Fiona Hill. Mrs. Smith was devastated. After her fiance left her for that same Fiona, she got terribly depressed. She stopped caring about herself and started dressing in boring clothes. Apparently, after all that, Mrs. Smith had grown to hate pretty girls and took it out on us. We decided we wouldn't anger her and tried to look more modest.
That infuriated me. Why didn't you tell me right away? I wouldn't have tried to stand out then.
We were so happy when you came. After all, Mrs. Smith left us alone and switched to you. I'm sorry. It was a mean thing to do, but I really like being friends with you. I don't want you to transfer to another school.
I forgave Susie because she was brave enough to confess everything. But now, if I didn't want to be thrown out of the school, I somehow had to make up with Mrs. Smith. I spent the whole evening surfing the net and reading about the contest. And in the morning, I finally had an idea. I got to the school early and I waited for Mrs. Smith at her office. She was obviously not happy to see me, but she listened anyway. I'm sorry. I said a lot of things that I shouldn't have yesterday. Students can't talk to teachers like that. It is unacceptable. You really hurt me, but now I know why, and I want to help you. Remember Fiona Hill? She still works as a model. In about a week's time, she's going to be competing in the Miss New York contest. Well, it's a contest for married people. What if you also applied and took away the crown from your longtime rival? Mrs. Smith looked at me like I was insane, but I didn't give up and I kept trying to convince her. In the end, the teacher stopped being angry and turned red. How would I dare get on the catwalk? Look at me. I'm not the girl I was 20 years ago. Nonsense! You are beautiful. Only for some reason, you forgot. Mrs. Smith smiled and agreed to my crazy idea. On that same day, we began preparing for the contest. After school, I took the teacher to my mom's beauty salon and went to choose a cool dress and jewelry for Mrs. Smith with Susie. And when we saw our teacher's new look, we jumped with delight. Our teacher looked incredible. We spent the whole week practicing the right walk. Mrs. Smith learned to walk the runway so confidently, it was like there'd never been a 20-year break. Susie and I were pleased with our work, and we invited our classmates to come support the teacher at the contest. And on that very important evening, we all took our seats in the auditorium, while Susie and I stayed backstage with Mrs. Smith. She was in a great mood, but then a woman came up to us. I recognized her immediately. It was Fiona Hill. She started hugging our teacher like they were old friends or something. With a nasty smile on her face, the woman began to talk about her life and show photos from expensive resorts. And it turned out that she was married to the man she had stolen from Mrs. Smith, and now they had 3 children. After such news, our teacher almost completely fell apart. Girls, we shouldn't have started any of this. I'd rather not participate. No, you can't give up when victory is almost yours. You've seen Mrs. Hill, right? You look 100 times more beautiful and younger. Oddly enough, my words worked. Our teacher pulled herself together and performed so coolly that I had no doubts she would become the next Miss New York. Before the announcement of the results, the judges left to confer, and I hurried to the bathroom. I was about to leave the stall when I suddenly heard Fiona Hill's voice. I stood on the toilet seat and I carefully looked out from behind the door. The woman was sobbing into the shoulders of some other older woman. I took out my phone and I turned on the camera. I definitely wasn't expecting to hear anything like this. Mom, Smith is just so much better than me. It's obvious to everyone this time, and she's gonna win. And this time, you're not gonna be able to do anything about it. Don't worry, I've thought it all through. Just like last time I paid the organizer, the crown will be yours again. I was shocked. That was so low. I wasn't gonna let Mrs. Smith get upset again because of a fake victory from her liar rival. So as soon as the women left, I rushed backstage and I found the presenter. I told them all I had just heard and I sent them the video. And after that, I walked up to Mrs. Smith, smiling mysteriously. I think I have a pleasant surprise for you. My teacher was just about to say something, but then the jury members returned to their seats. The presenter came onto the stage and asked for a few moments of our attention. My video from the toilet started playing on the huge projector, and for a few seconds, the judges froze with their mouths open. You should have seen what started then. The police came and took away everyone who had taken part in the conspiracy. Mrs. Smith burst into tears and hugged me tightly. Oh, thank you, dear. To think, for 20 years, I blamed myself for that failure. I was so insecure that I took it out on my students. Turns out, it wasn't my fault after all. But Mrs. Smith was interrupted by the presenter's voice. Despite all that has happened, we must choose a real winner. Dear jury, please tell us her name. My heart was pounding like mad. I squeezed my eyes shut, clenched my fists, and heard Mrs. Smith's name. Yes! She won! Won! That evening, the teacher got her long-awaited crown, but she gave it to me. She said that I deserved such an award, perhaps even more than she did. And since then, our school life changed dramatically. The girls were no longer afraid to wear fashionable clothes or makeup. Mrs. Smith had turned into a smiling beauty and had started to evaluate us for our knowledge instead. Well, almost. To me, as her favorite, she sometimes gave a couple of extra points. But shh, don't tell anyone. A couple of days ago, Mrs. Smith invited Susie and I to a tea party after school. Imagine, the groom who had once left her for Fiona Hill had written to her, but of course, she turned him down. And that's how I got 2 friends at once, a girl the same age as me, and a teacher. Share this video with someone who will definitely need it.
This is the SCP Foundation, a secret organization that finds and studies anomalous objects all over the planet. These are the Foundation's secret files. You may already be familiar with them. And these are the stories of ordinary people who got lucky to encounter the most horrifying creatures in the world. The SCP Chronicles reveal new details about the anomalous objects you didn't know before. Hi, I'm Sam, and I used to be the only child in the family. Mom and Dad did everything to make me live high. They gave me gifts, solved all my problems, and even excused me in front of teachers for absenteeism. But one day, everything changed. That day, as usual, I was returning home from school when I suddenly saw a pretty girl near our gate. She was obviously waiting for someone, but I didn't care. I went up to the stranger and said, "Only today and now, a last-minute tour of the surrounding area. Your hand, miss." Previously, such a pickup line always worked, but the girl suddenly pulled her hand out and looked at me like an idiot. "Get off before I call the cops!" How rude, and to be honest, insulting. No one had ever gave me such a cold shoulder, and I wanted to teach her a lesson. I took ice water and went up to my room and leaned out of the window to pour on the girl, but there was no one down there. I was upset, but then someone knocked on the door. I quickly hid the bucket of water and opened it. It was Mom. "Sam, let's go to lunch. We need to have a serious talk." I immediately guessed what was going on. My parents saw my report card again and decided to tell me off. Reluctantly, I went down to the living room, when suddenly I saw the very girl I was just going to pour over. It infuriated me. What is she doing here? "Sam, this is Linda, and she's your sister now. We took her from the orphanage." My eyes dimmed. Why did my parents suddenly decide to do this? Am I not enough for them? My spirit sank the lowest of the low. I spent the whole lunch pushing pasta around the plate and glaring at Linda, but she was smiling at me as if nothing had happened. In the end, Mom broke the silence at the table and asked Linda to tell a little about herself. The girl suddenly became very sad. With tears in her eyes, Linda told how she was bullied at the orphanage. The elders took away her food with treats, and she could go hungry all day. And when the teachers wanted to send Linda's drawings to a cool contest, they tore it up just out of envy. In general, I felt sorry for her, and I called my new sister for a walk. We got into a rap, and she turned out to be quite a good girl. I suggested we celebrate the acquaintance and making something delicious for dinner. We went to the supermarket and bought a bunch of kitchen stuff. But when I paid, Linda was suddenly grabbed by a security guard. "Miss, open your purse." "Let me go, it hurts." "Don't make me use force." I pushed this guy away from my sister. "If you don't stop, I'll call the police." But the guard just grinned. He tore the handbag out of Linda's hands and pulled out the products: cheesecake, strawberry topping, and marmalade. "I'm afraid I'll have to detain you." I was in shock, but I quickly got my bearings. "No need, my sister just forgot to put it on the belt. I'll pay for everything." On the way home, I gave Linda a piece of my mind. She apologized for a long time and said, "Since childhood, the habit has remained. It's just that when I was little, my parents and I had to steal. I was constantly caught by sellers. As a result, my parents got tired of messing with me, and they sent me to the orphanage." Yeah, she had a tough time. I promised not to rat out on Linda to my parents, but only if she didn't embarrass herself like that anymore. At home, we cooked dinner together and invited our parents to the table. Mom was praising our pizza when she suddenly screamed, "Linda, baby, where did you get such a bruise?" The bruise was left by the guard's fingers. I was going to help my sister out and lie, but she beat me to it. "Well, Sam pushed me, and I hit accidentally." I couldn't help myself and kicked Linda under the table. What kind of nonsense was she talking about? She clasped her hands pleadingly, and my mother began to scold me. I suddenly didn't want to eat anymore, and I went to my room. Feeling anger, I couldn't sleep all night, and in the morning, I came down on Linda. "Why did you do that?" Sorry, that's the first thing that came to my mind. I was about to let my sister go, but then Mom appeared. Sam, are you at it again? I didn't even touch her. Stop lying. If I see this again, I will seriously punish you. Again, this girl made me a scapegoat and didn't even stand up for me. I got angry again, but this time I cooled down faster. After all, the next morning I was supposed to get my Christmas present. All day I was preparing for the holiday. I decorated the Christmas tree in my room, made pancakes, and was so happy that I even forgot about the insults. And in the morning, as soon as the Christmas tree lit up, I took off my Christmas sock and pulled out a box. Yes, this was the Apple Watch I'd been dreaming about for so long. I was going to put on the watch, but then Mom snatched it out of my hands. No, Sam, you're being punished for hurting your sister. Therefore, this gift is not for you, but for Linda. Happy Linda grabbed my watch and hugged my parents, and I just froze with my hand outstretched. I was starting to hate this girl. The holiday was ruined. I locked myself in my room and played Xbox, but I couldn't get that watch out of my head. I wanted to take a closer look at it. So as soon as Linda went to the shower, I took the Apple Watch from her room and ran to mine. But I bumped into my sister in the hallway. She saw her gift in my hands and screamed, "Mom, hurry up! Sam stole my watch!" What? I just took it to have a look. Mom came running to Linda's scream and started getting under my skin again. I defended myself as best I could, but no one believed me, and all because of that stupid girl. That day, I was determined to get rid of her. I just didn't know how. But my parents, unwittingly, gave me a great idea. When I went out into the living room, the happy mom was sorting through some boxes. It turned out that Dad gave her a set of luxury cosmetics for Christmas, and Mom just couldn't tear herself away from it. I immediately had a perfect plan in my head. In the evening, I waited until Linda fell asleep, took my mother's makeup bag, and sneaked into my sister's room. A couple of times, I saw my mother preening herself, so I didn't get too confused. I painted the sleeping Linda with lipstick, blush, and eyeshadow. Then, I threw the makeup on the floor and started trampling on it. Everything shattered. That's what I wanted. I put everything into the makeup bag, returned it to its place, and, pleased with myself, went to bed. In the morning, I was woken up by a loud scream from my mother. Yeah, so she saw what happened to her new makeup, and is already running to punish Linda. I just couldn't miss the show and stuck my head into my sister's room. But instead of swearing, Mom stroked Linda's head. I decided to intervene. Wow, Linda, what have you done? These cosmetics probably cost a lot of money. I was hoping to annoy Mom, but she just smiled and even promised to buy Linda her own makeup. That was the giddy limit. I was left without a gift, and this girl was spoiled for such serious screw-ups. I urgently needed to share it with someone, otherwise I would just have to burst with anger. I invited my best friend Andy to play a video game and casually told him about my nasty sister. Andy agreed and nodded understandingly, when Linda suddenly came down to the living room and my friend immediately got confused. He spent the whole evening chatting with that bitch. I was already at the limit. Everyone, absolutely everyone, betrayed me and took her side. I couldn't take it anymore, and as soon as Andy left, I told Linda everything. I hate you, understand? Hate you! And believe me, I will do everything to get you out of here and back to the orphanage! Linda started crying and ran away, and Mom grabbed my hand and offered to talk calmly. But I got free and went to my room. I was too angry with my family. All evening and the next morning, I kept thinking about how to get rid of Linda. But as ill luck would have it, nothing came to my mind. To distract myself a little, I decided to beat a punching bag in the gym, collected sports clothes, and was about to leave the house, when suddenly, the door opened abruptly and hit me on the head. I immediately thought of Linda and wanted to swear, but then I saw my parents. They were very scared of something. With shaking hands, Mom handed me her mobile phone. There was Linda. She was sitting tied up in the middle of some room, and next to her was a strange guy in a mask. Of course, I wanted to get rid of my sister, but not in this way. Didn't get it. Was she kidnapped? They demanded a ransom of $5,000 for Linda. Why are you just standing? We need to call the police urgently. But my mom shook her head and showed the text message. The kidnapper forbade my parents to call the cops. Otherwise, it will only get worse. It was necessary to do something, and as soon as possible. I started pacing around the room and thinking, when suddenly, Mom attacked me. Sam, admit it. Is this your prank again? After all, you immediately disliked Linda, and yesterday, you even promised to get rid of her. I was so sick of it. I grabbed my mom's phone and rushed it to Andy. He studied computer programming in college and could figure out where the threats came from. I had to save this girl and clear myself of stupid suspicions. I wasn't wrong about Andy. He did it in just a couple of minutes. According to Google Maps, Linda was on the far end of town, and I printed out fake bills on a printer, put them in a briefcase, and some real money on top. Andy and I took a taxi to the address needed. There was a small house in front of us, and it suddenly seemed painfully familiar to me. We hid under the window and cautiously looked inside. I was expecting to see anything, but not this. Linda was sitting there in front of the TV and eating pizza as if nothing had happened. I guessed everything right away. What an ungrateful bitch you are. My parents took you home and did everything for you, and you invented this kidnapping to get money out of them? And how did I not guess right away? I would have screamed for a long time, but then Linda laughed, and so did Andy. I suddenly felt like a complete idiot. Now explain what's going on around here. I wasn't about to rip our parents off. It's just that you really got to me with your frame-ups. When Andy and I met, he offered to fake a kidnapping so that you would understand that you cared about me. Of course, we asked your parents for permission. They not only approved, but even agreed to play along. Well, why are you angry? After all, the plan worked. I suddenly realized where I was. When Andy and I were little, we used to come here, to his grandmother. Even my best friend betrayed me. You can't imagine how much I hated Linda. Now it's clear why you've been stuck in an orphanage for so many years. It's just that no one wanted to take such a reptile into the family. Linda suddenly turned pale and sniffed, but I didn't feel sorry for her anymore. I took my money out of the briefcase and went home to pack my stuff. My parents betrayed me, and I didn't want to live with them anymore. Furious, I stormed into my room and grabbed my backpack. But then I saw a familiar box on the table. It was an Apple Watch, even more brand new than Linda's. I immediately put them on my arm, when suddenly my parents came into the room. It's from Linda. The other day, a fashion photographer noticed her and invited her to shoot for a glossy magazine. They paid immediately. We offered Linda to buy her a laptop, but she decided to spend it on a gift for you. It's very strange. You're mad at her for nothing. The girl has suffered so much already. Yeah, start selling how she, poor thing, was kidnapped and held hostage. That's enough. I know everything. Actually, that's not what we're talking about. Linda was first adopted when she was 10. There were 5 other children in the family, and all adopted. Parents didn't care about them. They took orphans only for the sake of benefits. One day, the whole family went out on a visit. When crossing the road, Linda stopped at a pedestrian crossing to tie her shoelaces. The driver didn't notice her and hit her. The girl had an operation, but for the whole 6 months, she was forbidden to get out of bed. Adoptive parents did not want to bother with a problem child, and they returned Linda to the orphanage. 2 years ago, another family took her in. At first, everything was fine, but then the father lost his job and started drinking. Linda got beaten up every night for all sorts of trifles. People from the guardianship authorities noticed large bruises on her body and deprived a couple of parental rights, so Linda was left alone again. But now, she's finally lucky to have a family. She didn't know how to behave properly with her loved ones, so her behavior might seem strange to you. Please don't hurt the girl. She's really good. I remembered what I said to Linda before I left the house. No one wanted to take such a reptile into the family. I felt a little ashamed. Linda had been bullied all her life, and then I bothered. I promised my parents to try to improve relations with my sister, but in return, I asked them to pay more attention to me and not arrange such stupid performances. When Linda returned, I thanked her for the gift and invited her to the cafe. Over time, we got used to each other and began to live like normal brother and sister. Of course, we didn't stop fighting, but now we reconciled much faster. I couldn't stay mad at Andy for long either. He began to come more often to our house. But not because of me, but for Linda. That's how I got a sister. And what was the last time you fought with your siblings? Tell me in the comments.
Hello, is this the Wade residence?
Yes, you're speaking with Mrs. Wade. Is there a problem?
I'm very sorry, ma'am, but there's been a huge problem. You may have the wrong child.
What?
There has been a mix-up. We apologize because it is all our fault. There was a mislabeling, so the baby you've taken home may not be your biological son.
What the hell is this? You've waited 3 years to tell us that? Honey, hand me the phone immediately.
We only discovered this error recently. Other parents have been informed, but you're one of the last people on the list to know. You need to know because a lot of families may be coming over to yours to figure out if your son is actually theirs. I'm so sorry, and I apologize for the inconvenience.
The nurse quickly hung up. Hearing that the child they had loved and nurtured for 3 years may belong to another family was already bad enough. Imagining that their real child may have been taken by someone else was even more terrible, but the months that followed were downright exhausting. Every few days, a new family would come to conduct a DNA test on little Tommy and leave when they discovered that he wasn't theirs. It was traumatizing because they were always scared that they'd lose their son, over and over and over again. A year had passed since the phone call, and families were still knocking on the Wade's door. They couldn't take it anymore. It may have taken Mrs. Wade 5 years to give birth to a child, but it wasn't going to take her 5 years to realize that little Tommy wasn't hers. She'd always known it deep down. Little Tommy looked different from her and her husband. She didn't need a fortune teller to tell her that. She tried to send him off, but her husband convinced her to try a little harder. Another year passed and families were still coming. At this point, both Wades begun resenting little Tommy and agreed to send the 5-year-old to an orphanage. It was time to put their past behind them. Mom, where are we going?
We're going to your real home, little T. Here, you'll find your real parents.
Am I ever going to see you and Dad again? Stop sprouting rubbish and run into the building. Now, move! As I ran into the orphanage fearfully, I heard both my parents say, "Good riddance." I couldn't understand why they felt that way, but it hurt me badly, and although I was little, I wasn't stupid. I knew I was being abandoned. Like this video and subscribe to the channel if you never want to be abandoned. Trust me, it works. My first memory of a real loving home was the orphanage. Everyone adored me once I arrived, so it wasn't difficult for me to make friends. Being a good-looking child, I quickly found a family that wanted to adopt me. But 3 families later, I started wondering if I'd ever leave the orphanage. The families kept bringing me back because strangers always traced us back to wherever we traveled to and stopped by our house to take me for DNA tests. It traumatized these families because they didn't want their child to be taken away, but they had to comply with the DNA testing order since it was court-issued. They tried to handle it, but they couldn't anymore. They gave up and returned me to the orphanage. Most of them couldn't bear saying goodbye, so they just dropped me and ran away. I decided to enjoy my life in the orphanage because it seemed like I'd be there forever. "If you give me your drink, I'll give you a chicken. Let's exchange," Steve told me one day during lunch at the orphanage. "What if I want both my drink and your chicken?" I asked, grabbing Steve's chicken from his plate and stuffing my face with it. Steve started crying, so I had to quickly give him my drink before the matron would hear him. "You're such a crybaby. I can't believe we're best friends. And you're such a bully. I don't even understand how we became friends in the first place." I didn't understand how either. Steve and I had somehow become good friends in the orphanage over the years, and when I told him about my ordeal, he promised to help me find my real parents in the future, and we both laughed about it. Years flew by, and couples kept coming around to observe us. But by this time, rumors had spread about my ordeal, so no matter how cute I was, couples avoided me because they wanted peace of mind.
Tommy! Steve! Come here now!
Our matron called out one day, and we quickly ran to her office.
Today must be your lucky day. And I mean for the both of you. These 2 beautiful families have decided to adopt each of you. Greet them, then go pack up and clean up because you'll be leaving today.
I followed the man home while Steve followed the other family after we shared our goodbyes. But something felt off, so I wasn't very chatty in the car ride home. "And we're here. All right, hurry down, Timmy." "It's Tommy." "What did you say, Timmy?" "Never mind." I didn't like this man. How could he be my new father? He opened the front door and entered with me. "Honey, we're home," he sang, his wife quickly rushing out of the kitchen, but stopped right in her tracks when she saw me.
Eek!
She screamed.
Who's this stranger you've brought back home, you stupid man? This is not the young man I ordered. He's the wrong child. Return him immediately.
Wait a minute. Did she just say she ordered a young man? What are we, food? Well, I'd better be the wrong child for this family, because this was definitely the wrong family for me. I mean, my so-called adopted father couldn't even get my name right. It's Tommy, not Timmy for Pete's sake. The strange woman and man called the orphanage, and it turned out that the lady filing the adoption papers had swapped Tommy's and Steve's paperwork, so both families were asked to come back to the orphanage. "You almost stole my family," Steve said, playfully punching me when we met at the orphanage. "Please, have them." "Your family is kind of weird. I'm glad it was a mistake and I'm not theirs. Good luck with them, dude." Look, at this point, anything is better than a man who refuses to understand there's a difference between Timmy and Tommy.
Steve!
The strange woman screamed and hugged Steve once she saw him.
We almost lost you, my dear. Dear Steve!
"I'm glad you found me again," Steve said, hugging them. What? He doesn't even know these guys. He just met them. What a set of weirdos. "Goodbye, Timmy!" Steve's new father screamed as they left the orphanage with the right papers and the right boy. "Oh my God, it's Tommy! Why can't you—"
Shh! Tommy!
our matron sang.
Your adoptive family is right behind you.
She continued, stopping me from saying anything I'd regret in the future. All the paperwork was filed correctly, and Steve and I followed the appropriate family home. Our adoptive parents also spoke to each other and bonded before leaving, allowing us to keep our childhood friends and attend the same school. I was lucky this time. The number of parents coming for DNA tests had dissipated. I was adopted by an amazing family, and I didn't lose my childhood best friend. We'd just rounded up our English classes and were having lunch at the cafeteria when I decided to open up to Steve. "Steve, so I've been doing some research, and I think I found a way to locate my parents. This is the best time to do it since we both have a little bit of freedom. We can just sneak out of school one day and go to the hospital." "You found the hospital where you were born? That's amazing. Let's do it." "Yeah." We lied to our parents that we had 2 extra periods that day, so once classes really finished, Steve and I snuck out of school and into the hospital. But once we got there, we had absolutely no idea concerning the next steps to take. After minutes of wandering, Steve approached the nurse at reception. "Excuse me, please. My friend is looking for his parents, and I think you guys lost them here." The nurse burst into laughter after listening to Steve.
Shouldn't you guys be in school?
"Shouldn't we have biological parents?" The nurse was perplexed, so Tommy explained his life story to her. "I really can't believe that the government still lets his hospital operate after you guys ruined so many families' lives."
Who are you living with currently?
"My adoptive parents."
Please, come with them tomorrow so we can continue this conversation. I really want to help you, Tommy, but I need approval from your parents first.
We went back to school and were picked up by our parents. During dinner, I told Mrs. Briggs, my new mother, about my activities and what the nurse had told me, but she looked distraught.
You really hate us this much?
"Huh? I don't hate you, Mom. I just want to know who my real parents are." She burst into tears.
What have I done wrong? I've given you everything, and you still want to leave me? Why do you hate me so much? What can I do to prove to you that we love you?
And that was the start of another mad part of my life. Mrs. Briggs stopped me from going to school and started homeschooling me so I didn't escape and find my real parents. She stopped me from seeing Steve and didn't allow me to step foot outside for a few months. I was miserable, so I unconsciously became rebellious and started causing problems at home. Mr. Briggs pitied me and convinced his wife to follow me to see the nurse, so we all went to the hospital together as one big happy family, despite the fact we were all secretly miserable. The nurse at the reception took us to the oldest doctor in the building. He was familiar with the mix-up that happened over 10 years ago. After going through my hospital file and testing me, he decided to start his parent hunt. He started by calling Mr. and Mrs. Wade. They were shocked to see me at the hospital, and although I remembered them, I ignored them and behaved like I didn't see them. "Mr. and Mrs. Wade?"
Yes.
"This is the boy you initially went home with, but you sent him to an orphanage because he wasn't yours, right?"
Yes.
"If I may ask, did you ever run a DNA test on this boy to confirm if he actually was not yours?"
I was sure.
"All right, I'm sorry for the inconvenience, but we're going to have to ask you to do just that because we need to rule you out as his parents first before moving on to the next suspected family on our list."
That's fine. It's not like we have a choice anyway. This young man has caused us nothing but inconvenience ever since he came our way. How dare you speak badly about this amazing boy?
Mrs. Briggs landed a heavy slap on Mrs. Wade.
You don't need to say such a thing about a child, Mrs. Wade. He's right here, for Pete's sake.
Before we proceed, I have another question. Apart from getting traumatized because people were always knocking on your door and asking to find out if little Tommy was their son, did he do anything terrible in particular? Was he a badly behaved child? No, he's always been a great child. He just came with a lot of problems. All right. We ran the DNA test, and I could literally feel the tension in the room as everyone waited. I couldn't help but feel tense, no thanks to Steve. What if the Wades are your real parents? He whispered. I don't know. What if they're not? I don't know. Shut up. Mrs. Wade heard me scold Steve and shook her head in a, I hope you're not my son kind of way. After hours of waiting, the results came out and we all struggled to see them. Negative. The Wades were not my parents. I couldn't explain my emotions. I felt both happy and sad at the same time.
I knew it! Let's leave here, honey!
All right, so we're done with the first set of tests. Tommy, meet me here next Monday for the second set. You can all go. Mrs. Briggs hugged me as we left, and Steve held my hand tightly. When we all got to the parking lot, we heard some noise and turned to see the nurse and doctor chasing us. They were out of breath when they finally spoke.
I'm so sorry. The trainee nurses got the results mixed up.
The real test came out positive. The Wades are Tommy's real parents.
Hi everyone, my name is Grizz. Creepy name, right? Yeah, I don't like it either. It sounds kind of rude, but it doesn't really go with my looks. I'm actually very beautiful. Before you say the opposite about me, I'll beat you to it. What you see on me now, the shabby clothes, the messy hair, the black fingernails, the uneven eyebrows, it's all fake. Here, my nose. See how ugly it is? Whoop, it's a fake too. It's a fake. Why am I doing this? Oh, my friends, it's not me. It's my mother. She does everything to make me ugly. Any idea why she does that? Write in the comments and then we'll compare if you guessed it or not. You're in over your head, aren't you? Why am I beautiful after all? Here is the real me. My name was supposed to be Amelia. That's what my father wanted to name me when he was still alive. He and my mom loved me a lot, but we were having a hard time, and then my dad passed away, and since then, my mother never recovered from her grief. Moreover, she became prejudiced against me. She demanded that I stop dressing well, washing my face, and even brushing my teeth, but I still took regular care of myself. I couldn't do otherwise. An old friend of Dad's named Uncle Will often came to our house. He was 1 year younger than Dad, so rich but still single. There was no way he could choose a woman to marry. Everyone told him it was high time. At his age, people were already raising grandchildren. Uncle Will understood everything, but he was a loner in that respect. He was wonderful to me. He never came to visit us empty-handed and always gave me good presents, but my mother wouldn't accept anything and forbade me to either. I understood it hurt her pride because he was rich and we were poor. As I grew older, my uncle came less often. When I asked about him, my mother would start screaming, like it was none of my business where he was or what he was doing. But on those rare days when he would come, she would change her face even more and change me. She would immediately take me into the bathroom and mold this whole old masquerade. I had no idea why she was doing this. One day, I decided to resist her and told her I wouldn't wear it. Then she threatened that if I didn't, she would shave my hair and scar my face. Then I wouldn't have anything to put on. It scared me. I cried. Why? Why did she hate me so much? And then it started spreading. She didn't only do this at home, but at school and while visiting relatives. Children didn't like me. No one wanted to play with me. They called me a scarecrow and wouldn't come within 1.5 meters of me. I used to come home and cry. Calm down, that's enough. You've got nothing to whine about. Beautiful people have a lot of problems, but when you're ugly and alone, you have less problems. You'll thank me later.